Good afternoon. Welcome back to my podcast, the Black Carnivore Podcast. I'm really excited to bring this awesome guest to you today. Her name is Deborah, and she also goes by @PandemicCarnivore. And so check her out on Instagram, and I'm sure you're going to find her as fascinating and exciting as I do. She's really cool and a lot of fun, and has an exciting and a level of excitement and an ability to laugh at life and be a little bit irreverent. So I think that's important to bring that kind of quality to carnivore, because sometimes we get like entrenched in our whole thing, about how we eat and how important it is, and sometimes we have to be able to laugh at ourselves, and be a little bit more light. So I think you're going to enjoy this interview just as much as I enjoyed doing it. Welcome, and let's hear a little bit more from you. So Deborah, tell me a little bit more about yourself. Let's just get a little bit of background for everybody.
Sure. I have to tell you that my background when it comes to fitness and nutrition is extensive. So I have to say that when I was a kid, I was a chubby kid, right? And I distinctly remember my parents buying us junk food, and I kind of feel that they had a sense of wanting to make something up to us, because they were both hardworking people. So we would get these snacks and treats, and yay, hooray. So I was a chubby kid. And then you learn, in my teens, that you need to eat less and exercise more, which, that's the important rule here. And that's certainly what I did. And moving through life, up, down, up, down. But then in 2003, my father died of cancer. And it was absolutely terrible watching him die, watching him slowly start to lose weight, and just poof, he was gone from 6 weeks from the diagnosis to his death.
Oh my God.
6 weeks. And it was strange, because after that, I started to look more at mortality and why are people dying. And what I saw was heart disease and cancer. Heart disease, cancer, heart disease, cancer. And so I kind of put that in the back of my mind. But at the same time, after my father died, I started to eat a lot more. Cookies, candy, ice cream, ate. And I ate my way up to maybe 210 pounds, something like that. And it was funny, as I was gaining the weight, there was total denial. There was no way it was that big, until I finally got on a scale. So it was in 2005, so that took me about 2 years. In 2005, I decided to go on a breast cancer run or walk. And, I was with my friends, and we're walking along, and it was a 5K walk, and we got to the 3K mark. And I distinctly remember being absolutely exhausted. I was so tired. And my friends were like, "Oh no, we just got 2 more kilometers to go." And I was like, "No, it is not happening." And I left the race, got into the subway, went home, and I cried and I cried and I cried. And it was then that I decided that I need to lose this weight. So I remember going to the freezer, throwing out my Haagen-Dazs. I'm going to do this. And I immediately cut down to maybe 1,100 calories to 1,200 calories. And I started running. And I ran. And I ran. And I tracked my calories. I know a calorie now, right? I tracked my calories on Livestrong. And it was funny, because whatever fit into the calorie count, I ate. Right? So I was eating popcorn. I was eating 100-calorie Oreos. I was eating this garbage, but it fit into my calories, and I was losing weight. So I'm continuing to run, but I would end up gaining weight. Then I'd lose weight. Then I'd gain weight. And this yo-yo thing was starting to happen again. And I was white-knuckling it. I was white-knuckling everything. I wanted sugar. I needed sugar. So I would go on binges, right? But then I'd get back on track. But then come Monday, right, I get back on track. And then I go on another binge. And it just wasn't healthy and it wasn't right. And now at the time when this happened, I thought my life is over. But I fell into a pothole on a run that I had outside. And I sprained my ankle. So I couldn't run. And at the time, it was absolutely tragic. And I thought, I'm gonna gain the weight back because it's all about exercise. It's all about burning those calories. I'm gonna gain the weight back. And I ended up going to the gym that I go to regularly, and I had the boot on my leg, and I got onto the bike, and I'm on the bike, and one of these trainers came up to me, and he was like, you know, I've seen you running on the treadmill, running outside. I've seen you running and running. He goes, that's not the answer. He's like, you have to start weight training. So I was like, oh, right? I was like, okay. Oh, okay. All right, I'll start this weight training thing. And when I go into something, I pretty much go in 100%, right? So I got into the weight training, started doing the weight training, and somehow, somewhere, I learned about paleo. But just before that, I had read Gary Taub's book, Why We Get Fat. And that opened my eyes to so much. Now I go into, yeah.
So let me ask you a quick question. So did you read his article? Because remember, the book came out like, I want to say in like 2007, but he wrote an article back in like 2003. And that was the first time that I was like, wow. Did you read that one?
I didn't read the article. I think it started with Robert Lustig. And somehow I got from Lustig to Taub's book. And at the same time was Perlmutter's book, Grain, which I read, Wheat Belly. I can't remember the name of the doctor who wrote that. But I was reading all of these books at the same time. But when I think back, it was Why We Get Fat that really stuck out to me about fat. Because fat was the enemy. I still wasn't necessarily totally on board with that, but fat was supposed to be the enemy. But now I was learning, well, maybe it's not the enemy. Maybe, you know, we should be eating fat. Still had that in the back of my mind. But now I'm on the paleo train, right? I'm on the paleo train. Everything's going great. But then I started to creep back into sugar again. So in paleo, you can have honey, you can have sweet potato, and I was eating those things. Also, being an event planner, I would be going to events, but I'm paleo, but I'm gonna have this cookie. I'm paleo, but I'm gonna have this little sweet treat. But I'm paleo, right? So I'm lying to myself all along, and now I'm slowly starting to gain weight again. Okay, fine. How did I learn about keto? That's interesting. So in 2015, I had volunteered for the Pan Am Games that took place here in Toronto. And the first day, they fed the volunteers, and I'm going to call it straight out slop. They fed the volunteers slop. So the athletes, they got the good food, right? But the volunteers got the slop. And I was like, well, I can't eat this. So I ended up bringing my lunch on those days, and I was bringing with me chicken and broccoli because I didn't know anything. Like, I still had this stigma about red meat. So it was chicken and broccoli. Every day was chicken and broccoli. And then I started to get this taste in my mouth. And I was like, what is that? What is that taste? I don't understand. I went onto the Googles. Everybody goes onto the Googles to get their answers. And then the first thing I saw was ketoacidosis. I was like, well, I'm not type 1 diabetic, so that's not me. And then I saw this ketosis thing. Ketosis? What is that about? And then jumped right into the rabbit hole. Right into the rabbit hole when it came to ketosis. But there were so many things that I didn't understand. Like back in 2015, there just wasn't information about it, about the keto diet like there is now. So mistakes, I don't think it's right for me to say that I made mistakes, but I definitely had lessons along the way. And the one that's biggest for me is that I started following people on YouTube, and I found a particular keto guru that I followed. I consumed everything. And one of the things that she was saying is that you need to eat at least 200 grams of fat a day. My body didn't like that. My body did not like that.
So wait, after like 1 or 2 days on the toilet, you didn't just say, no, this isn't gonna work for me?
No,
or did it not bother you?
No, so it did bother me. It did bother me, but it was like, keep going, right? Like this it's this lack of listening to my body. My body is trying to tell me something, but keep going. And I was buying, I had grass-fed butter. You need grass-fed butter, right? I'm eating my butter, and I was eating and eating fat and getting so incredibly sick. Like, I can't describe to you the pain that I went through. But
I totally understand the pain you went through, but I am impressed that you stuck with it so long. And you seem very slender. Like, how tall are you?
I'm 5'3.5".
So 200 grams of fat for someone who is 5'3.5". Oh my God. I mean, but it's a testament to keto that you didn't gain like 50 bazillion pounds, because that's a lot of extra calories.
Well, I did start to gain weight. I did. So what happened was I started to gain the weight in a lot of pain. And I was thinking stuff like, well, from the guru, I had, a sluggish gallbladder. I was malabsorptive. I had thyroid problems. I had a litany of issues. I had leaky gut. I had all of this stuff. And then I started consuming supplements to balance everything. Like, when I think back to it, the amount of money I went to a naturopath, the amount of money I spent during this time was incredible, right? Because I needed to be in ketosis, but I didn't understand the tools that were available to me to try to figure this out in a different way. So
So wait, before you went on, so what kind of fat were you actually eating? Because was it olive oil and butter and I don't know what?
So during that phase, it was a lot of butter, olive oil, avocado oil, so a lot of monounsaturated fats. Being paleo, there were no polyunsaturated fats. There was no processed food. There was nothing like that. But most of it was butter. Butter. And also consuming like a lot of vegetables, spinach, broccoli, that kind of thing, right? So okay.
So I just want to interject, I'm really kind of digging in these days on fat and trying to understand, how we consume it and why it's so important for us. And I think it's very interesting that, you were doing this experiment of having the 200 grams of fat, but the type of fat that you're having does matter. And, and then there also is like an absolute amount that you need. So when you're 5'3" and very small, you might not need all of that much, but that's very interesting. Go on. I'd love to hear more.
Yes, but you're exactly right? And it's actually recently in the last few months, I've learned about different types of fat, but I went from, so I think that as I started to bounce back up, I'd say I got to 125. That's when I started to do keto. And I ketoed my way all the way up to 155. And
wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And I was going through the whole thing of, it's okay if I'm gaining weight. I'm gonna do this. I was producing ketones. I was making ketones, but I didn't understand the tools available. So
you gained 30 pounds.
I did. That wasn't gonna stop, right?
Well, how did your mental state go? Because, well, if nothing else, fat does help you to feel better and be in a better mood and more
Yeah.
mental concentration. So at least you were sharp, right?
Well, what's interesting is because I went from paleo to keto, I don't, all of this stuff has been a gradual progression for me. So I have to look back in order to see the changes in my health and my physical and mental performance. So it's been a slow, like I said, started 2005, right? So it's been a slow progression. But I got it to 155, and finally I was like, that's it. I can't keep gaining weight. I don't understand what's happening. And I was done. But I wasn't done going back to SAD. That wasn't going to happen, right? Because I've already established those food values from paleo. So that wasn't going to happen. So I went low carb, high fat, and increased my carbs. But you know what my carbs included?
Wine and chocolate.
Wine and chocolate. Loved it. Wine, chocolate, nuts. I ate nuts like nobody's business. I could not stop eating nuts. Pork rinds, all of this kind of stuff I was eating. And then last April, I don't quite know what it was that possessed me, because I was feeling comfortable at 155. I was like, this is where I'm going to be. I'm never going to be fat adapted. I'm never going to be keto, whatever, low carb, high fat the rest of my life. But something came in my mind, was like, you know what, try it again, because maybe there's some new information. Maybe there's something new. So I started to go back to those people that I used to follow. Not too many advances there, but somehow I found Dr. Annette Bosworth, and I read her book, and what she presented to me was fasting as well as GKI. So she calls it, I think she calls it the Dr. Boz ratio. I know there in the States, you guys have a different way of measuring and you need to do a conversion. But for us here in Canada, it's GKI millimolars. And that was like, ooh, that was huge. Now that I realized what this ratio was about, because before I was taking my ketones, I was taking my blood sugar, and it was like, well, you need to have your ketones, at least 3.6. Your blood sugar needs to be down to 3.0 or whatever it was. And none of it made sense. Like there was no rationale. It didn't make sense to me. And I am kind of a scientific person. Like things have to equate, be logical, make sense. I need data. So with that, I learned about the GKI, and I learned about the ranges with which it would be good to have my ratio. So now I could do a calculation. I had a calculation that I could do. And in the calculation, I figured out that I can eat more protein and consume less fat. Because back when I first started, it was don't eat a lot of protein. Protein in moderation. I swear I hate that word, moderation. Protein in moderation. Keep it moderate, right? So I was always trying to keep my protein low, get my fats up, getting sick. But I saw with the GKI, I can eat.
How low did you go, I wonder, with your protein? Did you measure that or did you count?
So that's the thing about me. Oddly enough, coming from this calorie counting background, I don't count anything. Yeah. I have no clue how much protein I eat, how much fat I eat. But my body will tell me.
Yeah.
Right? My body will tell me. So this GKI tool that I had, I could do calculations and I could see where my range should fall. So the first month, I guess, maybe I lost a couple pounds, nothing really happened. But then all of a sudden, things started happening. And I understood the science behind it now, right? I understood about gluconeogenesis. I wasn't worried anymore. I didn't have this stress on me. And the fat was just like, see ya. And what was interesting too is coming from this calorie counting background, I still had muscle. Like, I wasn't cold. I wasn't this fragile little, you know, my face wasn't emaciated. I still looked healthy. My skin was still glowing, and the fat was coming off, and I felt good. And I saw how in Dr. Boz's book, the cycles, so stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4 of ketosis, and now I'm fat adapted, and I feel great. And it's interesting, I also decided to try the fasting. So there were a few instances where I did longer fasts. So I think the longest I did was maybe 3 or 4 days. Then I switched to OMD. With OMD, on days where I go to work, I do OMD. On the weekends, I'll eat like a ton of bacon in the morning and fried eggs. Right? And then I'll also have dinner as well. But a few days ago, I felt kind of weighty because I've been working from home with this coronavirus business. And so I was having a ton of bacon in the morning and having my dinner at night. And I started to feel weighty. I just felt full. I just felt full. And my body said to me, you need to fast. And I did. So I fasted over the weekend. After that fast, I felt great. I was back on the ball and went back to OMD. And here I am. And, you know, my ketone levels actually went down. I cannot produce high ketones anymore. I think as well.
What would you say the number is?
Right now? So I took it this morning, and my OMD showed that I was at 1 this morning with my ketones, and my blood sugar was at 4.6 this morning. So that's actually pretty deep into ketosis, despite having a low ketone number, right? So that tool, that GKI, if anybody's out there who needs that kind of a tool to measure, it's so helpful. I did it this morning because I knew I was talking to you, so I was curious, but I honestly don't do it as much because I just don't show the numbers. And now I also know that I can't eat a lot of fat. I just can't. My body does not allow it. I wonder if it's just a case of whatever fat is on my body is fine to use that. If I do eat fat, it can't be rendered fat. I'll cook in bacon fat just a little bit. I'll eat raw bone marrow. I'll eat raw beef suet here and there. But, you know, I now get it. And then I learned about this carnivore thing. So I was like, well, I guess I'm carnivore, but I guess I always was carnivore. I don't know. I don't know.
Wait. So now you, at what point did you kind of cut out foods from the plant kingdom, or did you do that entirely?
That's interesting. So let's see, when I started the lower fat, for whatever reason, I felt better with my numbers when I didn't have broccoli and spinach and all of that kind of stuff. So those ketone numbers look better. And then I started to read more about vegetables and how they're not nutrient dense. And I have to say, all the way back to when I was counting calories, I was always like, why am I counting this? Like, why am I counting? So I've always had these questions about vegetables, but it's been implanted in our brain, right? You need your vegetables. You've got to have your vegetables. I remember saying to people, you don't eat vegetables. When I tell people now I don't eat vegetables, there's this, right? Like there's something wrong with you. The only fruit that I eat is avocado. In July, around my mom's house, there are wild strawberries. I'll eat those in July, but that's about it, really. Yeah. And vegetables, I'll eat just a little bit of broccoli. I think I eat it because it's sweet. Can you believe it? Broccoli is sweet. Right? So I'll eat a little bit of broccoli for a little bit of sweet, little bit of texture, maybe a little bit of color. I don't know, but I don't have to have vegetables every day. Every once in a while, my body's like, hey, I love that broccoli. But that's about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually love that approach. You're just paying attention to what you want. Being carnivore doesn't necessarily mean that, you never, ever, ever taste broccoli again. Although I have to say that once I did it and, my mouth has never said, hey, broccoli. Now, now
No.
chocolate and wine, yes. But my body's like, yeah, I remember we used to like broccoli, but,
It's
have some more steak.
about
You're just a little delirious.
I know.
You need a little more fat.
I have to go back to the wine for a second. I remember there are lies that I can tell myself, right? If I want something. So wine was one of those things. And, I did my research to support my theory that wine was okay, right? But as soon as I let go of the wine, because I was drinking like a lot of wine, and then in my mind, I'm like, well, there's something wrong with this. Just like the nuts. There's something wrong with this. My body is not reacting appropriately because I'm constantly eating nuts and I'm drinking my wine. As soon as I let them go, it just felt like this, and I felt better. I felt energized. It's interesting the lies you can tell yourself, and find things.
Well, we try to tell ourselves that wine is a health food, but I'm sorry to say it is just not a health food.
It's got antioxidants in it. Well, I don't need antioxidants if I'm carnivore. So everybody comes.
Yeah. So I continued to drink alcohol the first 4 months of carnivore, and I didn't get the health benefits that it's just not possible, or it wasn't for me. And the other problem too with alcohol is that your body treats it like sugar. So if you have a sugar addiction like I do, my brain and body respond to sugar, it's a drug for me. And so having alcohol, I don't need or want sugar when I'm having alcohol, because the alcohol is functioning the same way in my body. So I had to take it out, and once I did, that's when I really saw tremendous benefits and change. So
that's the thing. It absolutely. I know that sugar is something I cannot introduce ever again into my life. And all of those times that I was white knuckling it, it was because I still had sugar in my diet, and I had to remove it. And it's funny, the language that I use now is totally different. So when I'm talking to somebody about sugar, your carrot is sugar. Like, to me, sugar, carbohydrates equal, it's the same thing. So people say, well, I don't add any sugar. I don't have white sugar. I don't have I'm like, that carrot's sugar.
Yeah.
That carrot.
I know. And I like to say to people, like, I have as much trouble with a 2-pound bag of cherries as I do with a 2-pound bag of M&Ms. And, somehow cherries have this halo of health, but, the same physical effects are happening in my body. So I don't know, and a lot of times people are like, oh yeah, totally, sugar's terrible, I've taken it all out. And, now I have like tons more bananas and kiwi and strawberries and pineapple. And it's like, oh yeah.
It's like, that's called sugar.
Yeah.
And it's funny too, when you look at certain desserts, think about the fruit that's in there, right? Like carrot cake. Sugar.
I always thought, why are you ruining a perfectly good cake with carrots or zucchini? I mean, come on.
Right? I remember like eating zucchini chips, plantain chips while I was paleo, right? Because this is okay. It's sugar. It's sugar. And that's why I was white knuckling it. It was like being a roller coaster. It was like,
And that's right. Like, once you remove it too, like, it's tough for a week or two, but the longer you can go between the last sweet taste, like the more mental and theoretical that craving for sugar is. So it might still always be there, but it's not, it's not like you want to curl up in a ball and lay down on the floor just pounding the ground going, why? I want M&Ms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's funny is carnivory to me is freedom. I've never been more free than I am right now. I don't have anything pulling at me anymore. Nothing like during the day, it used to always be, well, what am I going to have? What am I going to have when I get home? Okay, I got to stop at the grocery store. I got to make sure that do I have this? I don't know. That's gone. That is gone. I am free. And to explain it to people, they don't really understand it. But no, I don't think about food. I didn't eat breakfast this morning. I have a bison steak that I'm gonna eat for dinner. I just have to tell you, I had bison for the first time last week. So good, lean, so it's good for me. And I'm having another one tonight. So that's a new discovery, is bison. But I know that I'm gonna have bison because I bought it this morning at the market. But otherwise, whatever.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's so cool that you're experimenting too with different kinds of meats. Like there are all kinds of things now that I'm cooking and eating and buying that before I was like, what? I've never even heard of that.
Right? Yeah.
I didn't know you could buy bison. But I want to go back to one of the things that you said about fat. I think it's really interesting. Well, one, to really pay attention to your body signals. And I feel like, I've spent so much of my life, like, denying the signals because, I'm going against them. I'm trying to cut my calories. I believe that sugar is the way to go. And I'm having these mini energy crises throughout the day that cause, like brain fog and coldness and tiredness and all of that. So, once I started to, to change that and to change the way I ate, it took a long time for me to start, it was like I had to make a firm commitment. Okay, now I'm going to listen to my body signals and not what any guru says about what proportion of food I need to have. And I decided also to stop counting macros. So I used to, I did do that. And so I had a sense of how much I was eating, but, no formula knows me specifically. And it doesn't know, my particular needs from day to day. So I love that you finally accepted what you need and use your own body as that guide. And I think a lot of us, there's everything from like the epilepsy formula of how much fat to protein you need, all the way over to, protein sparing modified fast. And, we all lie somewhere in between there, but where that place is, only experimentation will let us know. And also to remember that, our age and life and the season and all of these other things matter too. So what works now at this moment in time might need to be adjusted in, a year, or if you start going through menopause, or, you get sick, or you have a broken bone that needs to be healed. All of those things are going to adjust it as well. So I love that, you have taken this attitude and right now that leaner is better for you and you enjoy that and you feel better. So that's awesome.
Yeah. I think as well, for me, the science is really important as well. And I always try to keep up on new research that's coming out. And then I'll take that research and I'll see, does this apply to me or not? Right now, if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it, right? But I do have some theories and research in the back of my mind just in case. So I'm always keeping up on research, reading books, and it's funny. It's kind of a way of making sure that I instill these food values, that I understand why I'm doing it, because ultimately the reason I'm doing this goes back to my dad, right? The reason I'm doing this goes back to my family history about metabolic health in my family. And I know that if I don't take advantage of epigenetics, that I'll be heading down a path of disaster. And I don't want to die like my dad died, right? Yeah. I don't. I've always described to people, what I want is that One day I'm dancing, the next day I feel kind of tired, and the next day I'm gone. Like I don't want to spend, 10, 20 years dying. I don't want to spend 10, 20 years on medication that's not necessary, because we as human beings have the answer. And you had mentioned about how, eating calories, feeling cold, measuring, our calories and that kind of thing. And I remember thinking to myself, why won't my body walk with me? Why is my body fighting me on this?
Yeah.
I was fighting my body.
Mm-hmm. And that's a battle we'll never, ever, ever win.
Ever. Why can't I, no, the answer is there. We just I think we need to figure out why we need to get there. We've been lied to. And it makes me so angry, because I just think about all of the lives that could be saved had
and all the time wasted. Think about all the time you spent thinking about calories, looking them up, writing this stuff down. It's like your life, my life, part of it was stolen. And, and in a way, I am so thankful that I was bad at dieting, because now, when I look at in the keto and carnivore community, I think that it seems like the people who are most metabolically damaged and are, like dealing with thyroid and all that stuff, those are the people that were actually pretty good at restricting and ignoring their body signals. I could only go so long being hungry, and I was like,
yes,
I go order like a pizza.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I think because I was not good at restricting, I didn't have as much damage to my metabolism as other people. And so, straight up doing carnivore and listening to my body signals, it more or less is working. But I think other people, may have to, they may have to take Synthroid. They may have to add in, some other stuff to, really accommodate things that have broken significantly. So, yeah, I think that's.
It is true. It's how much healing do you have to do? And really, honestly, my healing started like years ago, because I'm pretty sure that I did a lot of damage. I'm pretty sure. But when I think about where I am right now in life, I certainly didn't imagine that I would feel this good, in comparison to my peers.
Yeah.
Right? So I hope that because people ask me all the time, what is it that you do? I'll explain it to them, and then they're like, wow, good for you. That's great.
I know people are always asking me, how did you lose all this weight? How did you do it? And then and they're like,
keep
oh,
doing
I can't
it.
do that.
I hope I'm a good example to people. And if they ask me, I answer, right? I let them know.
Yeah. So let me ask you, God, I have a couple of questions I wanted to ask. Well, one, I wonder if the time that you spent gaining 30 pounds on keto, even though we think that's bad, if that maybe wasn't so bad, because I think that there's something, really healing about fat. And I wonder if allowing yourself to really, really gorge on it didn't in some way benefit you, even if it wasn't pleasant to, feel sick and to gain weight.
Well, I think that the benefit there was actually kicking my gallbladder into action, to be honest with you, because I was extremely low fat for the majority of my existence, right? Because that's what we were taught. So my gallbladder wasn't doing anything. I'm surprised that I didn't get gallstones, to be quite honest. So I think that consumption of fat, as uncomfortable as it was, kicked my gallbladder into action. I don't know that my inability to consume fat right now has anything to do with my gallbladder. I don't think so, because there were particular signs to me that it was a gallbladder issue that I don't necessarily have now. But I think that was the benefit there, was waking my gallbladder up.
Yeah. So you restarted what you call kind of like strict keto last year, but you had been low carb, high fat before, without really counting macros or anything. Is that correct?
Yeah. So low carb, high fat, high wine.
When I first as created my Instagram account and I was coming up with a name, I kind of thought about being the chocolate carnivore. So when I was thinking about starting my Instagram name, I was, trying to think of a name, and I really wanted to, when I was starting to think about carnivore, I was looking for other people of color who were doing it. And, and so which of course I couldn't find. So then I thought, okay, well, if anybody else is looking, I want them to easily be able to find me. So I had kind of thought about a handle, the chocolate carnivore or chocolate carnivore. But then I was like, oh man, but people are going to think I eat chocolate and then only meat.
Can I tell you how I found you? Can I tell you how I found you? So, in the carnivore community, currently there's a lot of discussion about vitamin D and the lack of vitamin D in one's diet, and how if you have, vitamin D and the coronavirus, it can scave it off and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know, it doesn't float with me. The argument doesn't float with me. And one of the reasons is because I'm a Black woman, right? So being Black, we don't absorb vitamin D from the sun like everybody else. And I thought, but I'm fine. I don't know what my vitamin D levels are. It's never been a concern for me. I go to the doctor. She never tells me that it's under, but what if it is? Because like everything else, those dietary regulations that are in place aren't necessarily true for someone who's carnivore. So I did a little bit of research and I found information about, people in Africa, people in the Caribbean who have vitamin D deficiencies according to these regulations, but they're healthy. We cannot absorb the vitamin D from the sun. Taking, and supplements as well, I don't believe in it, but about 50% of Black people cannot have vitamin D deficiencies, even though they're outside in the sun, in the Caribbean, in an African nation, in the sun. So I had communicated with a carnivore guru type person, and I explained this because he had posted something about vitamin D. And after the conversation that I had with them, I was like, I'm so alone.
Yeah.
So alone. Like, never mind being in Toronto, right? Yes, there are Black people here. Of course there are. But how many of them are carnivore? I'm a woman, and nobody in my life do I know who's carnivore or keto or anything of this sort. Even paleo, right? Nobody. So that's how I found you. I went on Instagram and I went, Black carnivore.
Yeah. So yeah, it's got to be that easy. Yeah. That's so awesome. I'm so glad that my reasoning actually made sense.
It made sense.
Yeah. And I'm trying to build a little community, a place where we can ask each other questions and just get support. And especially my family is from the South, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. And so just eating Southern food, that's kind of a big deal to, remove the peach cobbler and the mac and cheese. So I also try to replicate at least some of the meat dishes that people are really comfortable with, so that, there's a little bit of that there. And so I'm trying to make a little oasis for us if we, for those of us who feel like we need it. And I'm so glad to add you to the community.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm thrilled that there are other Black carnivores.
Yeah. I'm actually thinking about starting I don't know, maybe a Facebook group or a Slack group of the people that I interview and some of the people that I know, so that, there's a little place for us to chat if need be. So I don't know if you'd be interested in joining something like that.
Of course I would.
Nice.
Of course. And I mean, especially for our community, this knowledge is so incredibly important. It's so important for our people to realize that, wait a second, we've been lied to. We've been lied to.
Yeah. And actually, one of my, I guess one of my subscribers on YouTube sent me a link to an article in ProPublica, which I think it came out like maybe just a few days ago, about this doctor in, I want to say it was like Tennessee or maybe Mississippi, who focuses, I guess he's what's the word, a vascular specialist. So basically, the person who cuts off or amputates the limbs of people who have diabetes. And, he has very strong feelings about the fact that the amputee rate is 3 times as high in the Black community as it is in the white community of people with diabetes. And, I actually found that completely stunning. I did not realize that it was that dramatic. And that makes this message all the more important. And for me, I don't care if you're, low carb to carnivore, anywhere on that spectrum is fine with me, because if you can be in ketosis, then you can be healing. So, this is why I kind of want to bring this message and bring all of our stories, because, people learn by scientific studies, but they also learn by stories. And to hear you and to see other people who have done this successfully and continue to live a happy life, that's what we need to know. So are you happy?
Oh, yes. I mean, one of the biggest things that people say to me is, but you got to live a little. Go, yeah, I got to live a little. Running up the stairs, running down the street, being able to sleep well, having my mind, soul, and body connected. You're right. I gotta live a little. So I'm not gonna eat that, and I'm not gonna drink that. Right? Yeah.
And you look great. I mean, you're very slender. I mean, and actually, well, I don't want to put your weight on blast, but you did say you're 5'3" and 125 pounds, which is technically, a little higher than you might expect for someone your height, yet you look so slender. So I think, you must be carrying a lot of muscle.
Okay, so this is interesting. So I am actually now anywhere between 117 and 120. When I was losing the weight, I got to 115 or 116, and I was like, I don't like this anymore. I was like, I don't like being this slim. But as that was happening, my ketone levels were going lower, and my body just kind of, and then I went and put on a bit more weight. So now anywhere between 117, 120, I was 125 last week when I was eating 2 meals a day and eating a heap of bacon, but that just dropped off in the week. And I feel good. I feel great. And I don't work out.
I love hearing that.
I'm one of those people. I am now one of those people. I don't work out. I used to spend night and day. I was a gym rat, always there. I can't lift any heavier. I can't run any faster. I have not been to the gym. I don't go to the gym. Maybe one day I might. Maybe one day I'll be like, I'm going to head on in. But right now, I don't care to. I don't want to. I don't go. I have lost no muscle mass, right? Because my ketones are protecting my muscle mass. All's good.
Well, so PSA, they tell us exercise is super important. So I'm not saying don't do it, but isn't it great to be able to maintain your weight without relying on constant exercise to do it? And that's the way it's supposed to be. I mean, we're supposed to be able to say, stay relatively healthy. I mean, maybe, we're not going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger or, some other super ripped and shredded person without working out, but you should be able to stay reasonably healthy without killing it in the gym.
Absolutely. I believe it's your body's balance. And once again, you're not fighting your body, right? Your body wants you to live. Your body wants you to live. That's the whole point. And quite honestly, this is the only possession I have. This is it. And I'm going to treat my body as best I can. I remember running and my knees hurting and all that stuff. Yeah, I go for my walks. Yes, I get out in the sun. I walk my dog, you know, but if I need to run really fast, I can do it. Right?
Excellent. Excellent.
If I need to
And,
run the stairs, I can do it.
yeah. Yeah. Well, but that's life. You want to be able to do your daily activities, and your daily activities are going to increase. I mean, when I was super heavy and like not in ketosis or anything like that, my daily activities was like struggling to get, to work, like taking the subway and then not getting up at all again. And then, taking that one trip home. But now my daily activities might include running up and down the stairs multiple times, going places like, well, not now, but, even in these circumstances, though, yesterday I hit 16,000 steps, and I wasn't doing anything in particular. So I'm moving way more than I ever used to. And it's a pleasure to, like, I want to, my body is like, yeah, let's get up. Like, I want to move around. So that's a really nice thing, I think, about getting healthy, is that you just feel better. You want to do stuff.
That's a very good point. I do think back to when I was heavier, and just the thought of going to the elevator and going down, I was like, oh, what?
It's like, isn't there a device that can carry me from my couch to the elevator? Or like, what, do I have to walk?
And what kills me too is that there are so many people out there living this way, thinking that that's normal.
Yeah.
It's not normal. It's
Yeah.
not even supposed to be a thought in your mind that you're going to go over there, or, oh, I have to go to the kitchen now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It shouldn't be a thought that you have to go to the kitchen, but I distinctly remember feeling that way. Just everything was so, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down and talking to me. I feel like, I have a million questions and there's a million things that we could discuss. So I'm hopeful that we can do, another one of these interviews at some point in the future. But this has been so cool. And I'm sure there are going to be a lot of people that have questions and would love to follow you. So they should go to @pandemiccarnivore, and, but they can all, well, I don't know, maybe you'll put a link, because you're also quite stylish and fashionable, and that's always cool to look at. So I hope you'll share some of your outfit pictures and everything too.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
I enjoyed this was great. I mean, who doesn't like talking about themselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and if you ever, so wait, are you a member of MeetRx or no?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
No, I'm not a member of anything. I'm just.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to create this kind of community. One of the things I did like last summer was, try to draw together all the New York City carnivores, and we actually had a barbecue and met in real life. And it's like, there's something so different from, like watching these videos and sort of reading, blog posts, and then like actually speaking to a person in real life or looking them in the eye. And it's so amazing to really start to feel like that community. So, I encourage you to do that. Like now, the New York City carnivores, we have a Zoom that we do every week to connect. But, I don't know how long we're going to have to do that. But, you might want to start, I'm thinking about maybe pulling something else together, because we do have some people from California who've started to come. And so it's an East Coast, West Coast thing now. But perhaps I will invite you, and it'll be a North and a South as well.
I would love it. I mean, I've tried to find carnivore community or even keto community in Toronto, and like there's smatterings here and there, but there's nothing really substantial here. So I would love to be a part of it. And if you have any ideas for me how to start my own in Toronto, perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. I'll totally help you out. But I'm going to make sure you get into, I guess, the Facebook group and the New York City Carnivore Zoom and the Carnivore Book Club Zoom. Probably both of those would be really cool. Yeah.
Well, I love to read those books.
Yeah, you do. So you got to be there for the next one. And I forgot. There's an article that we're going to read next. Oh my God. And I've got to spread that around. So I will send you that too.
Please do. And right now I'm reading Amy Berger about
Yeah,
Alzheimer's. So, and that one's very dear to my heart, that research. Yeah.
Yeah, she's ridiculously smart and really engaging. So that's awesome that you're checking that out. Okay, so we'll be in touch soon. And thank you so much. I really, really enjoyed this.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.